Hello, I'm Kasia Madera. You're watching The Context on BBC News. In the United States, Congressman Kevin McCarthy is battling to get elected as Speaker of the House, a position that would make him second in line to the presidency. Well, these are the images live from the House of Representatives, where a third vote is taking place, and it's the first time in 100 years that the House has failed to elect a Speaker on the first ballot. After a Ukrainian strike in the Donbass left many Russian troops dead and Moscow red-faced, we'll look at the political fallout within Russia. A rapturous welcome for Cristiano Ronaldo as he makes a multi-million-dollar move to Saudi Arabia. Tonight, with The Context, we're joined by Ron Christie, former advisor to George W. Bush, and Aisha Hazarika, journalist and former Labour advisor. Hello and a warm welcome to the programme. It's the first day of the new US Congress and already it's full of drama. After the swearing in of new members, the House of Representatives is stuck at the very first hurdle of choosing a new Speaker of the House. For the first time in 100 years, the House has failed to elect a Speaker on the first ballot. We've now had 2 rounds of votes, with Kevin McCarthy receiving 203 in both rounds, well short of the 218 majority that he needs. So let's cross over to Capitol Hill because my colleague Will Grant joins us now. And Will, history in the making. We're in for a third round of voting. Well, let's bring our panel in now, and Ron and Aisha, it's firstly, Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year, and what a start to the new year. Ron, let's start with you. Come on, what is going on here? In 100 years, this hasn't happened, and here we are. What's going on with the Republicans? Well, we'll let you get on and just monitor what is happening in the House of Representatives itself. But Ron, let's just bring you back in. This idea of finding some grey ground, some area where there can be some agreement, where would that be in your thinking? And it just goes to show how divided, polarised politics is at the moment. And while we're talking, we are, of course, keeping an eye on what is happening in the House of Representatives as the politicians there nominate and vote for a Speaker. The historic third vote taking place right now, not seen in 100 years. A third ballot taking place right now. We are keeping an eye on it. But right now, let's bring our viewers up to date with some of the day's other stories making the headlines today. The government is preparing to declare formally that Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps is a terrorist organisation. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is one of the most powerful paramilitary groups in the Middle East, and the legal procedure would mean that it would become a criminal office to belong to the group or support its activities. Palestinians in several Muslim countries have condemned the visit by Israel's new far-right security minister to Al-Aqsa compound in Jerusalem. Itamar Ben-Gvir has long argued that Jews should be also allowed to pray in the compound, which is open only to Muslim worship. The compound is home to the holiest site in Judaism and third most holy site in Islam. Portuguese record goal scorer Cristiano Ronaldo has been unveiled by his new team, the Saudi football club Al Nassr. It's reported he'll be earning a whopping $212 million a year, making him the highest paid footballer in history. The 5-time Ballon d'Or winner says that he's excited to break new records in Saudi Arabia. Now his work in Europe is done. And let's bring our panel in here, because we've worked out how much Ronaldo will earn by the end of this programme in an hour, and it is $25,000. Absolutely. You're welcome there, viewers. We've done the maths for you. But Aisha, on a serious note, didn't he just a month ago tell Piers Morgan that he wasn't chasing the money, that he wanted to stay in Europe and that he wouldn't go to a place like Saudi Arabia for the money? I guess it's just interesting to see so soon later this complete change of heart. I'm reticent to call it soccer, but yes, soccer in the United States, and he really just ignited that game across the US. Beautiful thoughts there. Thank you, Ron. Now let's turn to the ongoing war in Ukraine. It is still unclear how many Russian soldiers died in a Ukrainian strike building that was housing Russian troops in the occupied Donbas region. Now, Ukraine says that its attack on Makivka killed hundreds of soldiers, but Russia, in what is actually a really extremely rare admission of battlefield losses, says that the attack killed 63 of its troops. But even this admission has led to anger in Russia over how Ukraine could have successfully launched this attack. To discuss the fallout of the strike on Makivka, let's talk to Francis Carr, who keeps an eye on Russia TV for BBC Monitoring for us. So just talk us through what we do know, because I keep caveating it's very unclear as to how many people we know were killed in that strike. What do we know so far?
Tell you that resolve and that sense of purpose and that sense of coming together is a really important factor. A really important factor,
which we will get to. Aisha, apologies for interrupting. Just breaking news that Kevin McCarthy doesn't have enough votes to go through after the third historic ballot, House Speaker.
Stories of success, stories of failure, stories of strength, stories of corruption, stories of hope, stories of despair, stories of optimism, resilience, achievement, triumph. Remarkable stories from different places around the world. Join us for a series of stunning award-winning documentaries. Why Stories on BBC World News.
Hello, welcome. I'm Kasia Madera. You're watching The Context on BBC News. New year, disruption on UK railways with yet another strike and no pay agreement in sight. 40,000 members of the RMT union walk out again in their dispute over pay, working conditions and the future of services. In the US, Congressman Kevin McCarthy appears to have lost a historic third vote in his bid to be the Speaker of the House, with a small group of Republicans determined to block his election. NFL star Demar Hamlin is still in critical condition after suffering a cardiac arrest in a primetime game. Tonight, with The Context, we're joined by Ron Christie, former advisor to George W. Bush, and Aisha Hazarika, journalist and former Labour advisor. Welcome back. We will look at the strikes here in the UK in just a moment. But first of all, it does look like Kevin McCarthy has already not got enough votes to win his third historic ballot to become House Speaker of the Representatives. There's the scene live there. Now, so this is the third vote, and already we believe that he will not be able to go through to be able to win it in terms of the numbers. Now, Ron, it's just, we talk about this being historical. This has not happened in 100 years, and we touched upon just how divided the Republican Party is. But this is, you know, if as we're saying, if the numbers mean that he doesn't go through in this third round, is it all lost for McCarthy? But now let's return back to the UK, because here, as commuters begin to return to work in the new year, they are facing a new wave of strikes. Tuesday marked the start of a 48-hour walkout by workers at Britain's largest rail union, the RMT, with just 1 in 5 trains running. It also came with a warning from union bosses that disruption could carry on for months. Well, here's what the head of the RMT union, Mick Lynch, said when asked how keen he was to end the action. So, how are people making this? Joe Twyman is the co-founder and director of the public opinion consultancy Delta Poll. Joe, have you had a chance yet? I know it's early days, 3rd of January so far, but have you had a chance to have a look at how people are, whether they're still behind or if they are behind what we're seeing, this industrial action? Okay, let's bring our panel. Joe, thank you for the time being, just for talking us through the figures there. Let's bring our panel in, because Aisha, as we're seeing the rail strikes that we're witnessing today, we know that Mick Lynch has apologised for all of this dragging on, and he's accusing the government of doing nothing about the dispute. And yet you've got the head of Network Rail saying that they want to sit down, they want to talk. What's your understanding? Help us to understand where the stalemate is with this. Aisha, for the time being, thank you. And Joe, thank you very much for just talking us through the figures when it comes to the polling. I know we'll come back to you when the polls are a little bit more consistent after the holiday period. But Joe Twyman from Delta Poll, for the time being, thank you. American football star Demar Hamlin is in a critical condition after suffering a cardiac arrest during a primetime NFL game. The Buffalo Bills player fell to the ground after colliding with an opponent. Medics treating him on the field were able to restart his heart quickly, but continued to treat him for another 30 minutes before taking him to hospital. Well, we can speak to Mike Wending, a US digital reporter based in Chicago. And Mike, so much concern as to his condition and so much interest as to what happened. Such a young man. Yeah, and Mike, let's just stress, let's bring our panel in, but we're stressing that there's absolutely, of course, nothing to support that. But Ron, it's a big shock when you see something like this happening, because people were watching it in real time. Yeah, it's those flashbacks of seeing it live, a bit like when we saw with Christian Eriksen. But of course, he's back up and playing. We wish Demar all the best, of course. And Mike, thank you very much just for talking us through your findings. Mike Wendling there, thank you. It is now time for the panel. So it is now time for that time of the evening where we ask our brilliant guests to talk us through some of the things that they found interesting. But seeing as it's the first programme of 2023, we're going to do some predictions instead. Because, guys, I'd like you to think about what we can expect, what we should be looking out for in 2023. And let's start with Aisha. Will President Biden, what can we expect from President Biden? Will he or won't he run for 2024 for the US election? What's your reckoning?
Political gravity. He has a sense of history. He loves the idea of being the comeback king.
And we are defying time. Aisha, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but Aisha, Ron, thank you so much. I don't want to wish away 2023, but 2024 with elections in the UK and the US will be exciting.
Hello. A major winter storm is once again bearing down across the USA.